Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to day 17 of our free training program on Python for AI. Today, we are going to understand advanced concepts of functions in Python and especially how data flows into functions and how functions behave internally. Let's recap what we learned till now. So, from day one, we've understood about the Python and the history of Python and also about the versions of Python. There are totally three versions till now. And we've understood the features of Python, which are like 12 features. So these features make Python widely adapted and popular. And also we have understood about the installation of Python on our local systems and how we can set up. And then we've understood about the Python IDEs, or else called as workspaces. So these are the workspaces or the IDEs where we work with Python. So we can write the code, edit the code and run the code. And then we've learned about literals, which is the fixed data which we give to the programs. So without data, programs cannot run. And then we got to learn about the variables or identifiers. So these are like the names for these literals. So these variables consist of the reference which point to the objects consisting of these literals or data. Then we got to learn about data types. Totally there are 14 and 6 categories. Six main categories, and internally there are totally 14. And we've learned about the operators in Python, and then we started to learn about flow control statements. In that, first we learned about the conditional statements, which are simple if elif else, and if else. And then we've also learned about the nested loops, nested conditions in this. And then we've moved on to the loops. So loops are for loop and while loop. So we've also learned about these and also the nested loops and also about the conditions for infinite loop and also the three mandatory parts of the loops. And then we got to learn about loop control statements or miscellaneous flow control statements. So they are break, continue, and pass. And then we started learning the functions in Python. So mainly functions consist of two parts, the function definition and function calling or the function call. So we covered the introduction and how functions are and the four approaches of defining functions in the last class. So in this class, we're going to learn about advanced concepts of functions. So we're going to go in depth about the functions. So think of function like a machine. So you give it some input and it will process it, and then it will give us the output. So the main question is, how do we give input to the functions properly? So we need to understand how can we give input to a function properly. So that's where arguments and parameters come in. So today we're going to learn about the types of arguments and global local variables and global keywords also. So the arguments are the values which we pass to a function. So there are mainly two terms. Firstly, the formal parameters. So these are used in the function definition. So when we define the function, we will be writing as def keyword and the function name. And then in the parenthesis, we'll be giving the variables, right? So these are the formal parameters. So these are the variables given in the function definition. When it comes to the actual arguments, so these are the real values passed while calling. So if you look at the example here, we have the function definition def space the function name greet, and in this we have the parenthesis, and this name here is the formal parameter. So the variables which are passed during the function definition are called as formal parameters. So this name here is the formal parameter, and we will write the function that is print hello and then name. So whichever name we give here, that will be printed. So here I've called the function. So this is the function call. That is, we will use the function name, and in the parenthesis, we'll be writing our string. So this NEUT here is the actual argument. So this is the value passed while you are calling the function. So I'm calling the greet function and I'm passing this value. So this is called actual argument. So what happens is, when I call the function, so this function, greet function, gets called, and in the place of name, which is the formal parameter, so this take the input, that is the actual argument NEOT, and what it will do is it will run or execute this print function. So it will write hello and comma, we give name, right? So this gives some space here, and then we'll be writing the name, which is NEOT. So it will print us hello NEOT with a space in between. So this is how functions actually work, and this is the formal parameter and actual arguments. So think of the formal parameters like a blank field, and the actual argument as the value you give to fill that field. So now we're going to learn about parameters and local variables. So in functions, we come across two types of parameters. So they are formal parameters or variables, local parameters or variables. So formal parameters is nothing but the values you give in the function definition. So this is used to receive the values. And when it comes to the local variables, so these are used to store temporary values. So inside of the function, when we want to store temporary results or values, we will use the local parameters or local variables. So let's take an example. We have a function here. So this function is the add function. So we are defining the add function with def keyword, and the function name is add, and in the parenthesis we are giving our variables. So these are the formal parameters. So these are like the placeholders or blanks which we filled with values later when we call the function. So these are used to receive the values and take the values as the input. So these are called the formal parameters, and here we have a result variable. So this variable here, if you see, this is used to store the temporary result of a plus b, right? So we take the inputs and we will add them and will store in a temporary variable, that is result here. So to store temporary results, we will use local parameters. So here the result variable is local parameter, and we will return this result. So when I call add function with two values, let's say 3 comma 4. So what happens here is 3 comma 4 values will be given to a comma b respectively. So a will be 3 and b will be 4. So this a and b values are the formal parameters which are used to receive the values from the function call. So these are the values, and what we are doing here is we are performing the addition operation of a and b. So to perform a and b, a plus b, what I am doing is I am doing the a plus b and I am assigning that value to a temporary variable, that is result. So this result here is the local parameter. So this will hold the temporary value, that is a plus b, which is 3 plus 4, that is 7. So result variable will hold the value of 7, and the will return this result value. So we'll return the 7 value. Wherever we call the function call, we'll return the value 7 to there. So this is how the formal parameters and local variables or local parameters are used. And you need to remember that when I call values in my function call, so these are the actual arguments. So the values in the function definition are formal parameters, and the variables which I am using to store temporary results inside of this function are called as local parameters or local variables. And when I call this function add function, and I'm making a function call and I give the values, right? So these are the actual arguments. So these three parts are important and please remember it. So these are the formal parameters, local parameters or variables, and actual arguments inside of the function call. So we have mainly 5 types of arguments. So Python gives us 5 ways to pass arguments. Arguments are the values which give in the function call. So we have the 5 types. First one is positional parameters or arguments. And then we have default parameters or arguments. And then we have keyword parameters or arguments, or variable length parameters or arguments, keyword variable length parameters or arguments. So let's understand them each step by step. So firstly, let's learn about the positional arguments or parameters. So we use this positional arguments or parameters when the order matters. So let's take a function def and I'm defining the function name and I'm giving the parameters 1, 2, 3 and 4 and so on till n. So when I want them to be in the same order, so when the order matters, we will use the positional arguments. So it says that number of arguments must be equal to number of formal parameters. That is when we call, so when we do the function call, the function name we will give and we will pass the actual arguments, right? The values with the function call. So these number of arguments should always match with the number of parameters in the function definition. And what happens is that first argument will be stored in the first parameter, first formal parameter, and second argument will store be in the second parameter or the formal parameter, and so on. The nth value or the nth argument will be stored in the nth parameter. So that is why the number of parameters, that is the formal parameters in the function definition, should always be equal to number of actual arguments, that is in the function call. So when order matters and when we want higher accuracy for the order of parameters, we will be using the positional arguments or parameters, and the number of parameters should always be equal to number of arguments. Now let us understand them. So if you take a real life analogy, so it's like giving exam answers. So for the question 1, we'll be giving answer 1, right? And question 2, we'll be giving answer 2. So if you mix order and you will give question 1 to answer 2 and question 2 to answer 1, the mapping will be wrong, right? So that is why, so when you want an order, so question 1 should go to answer 1 only and question 2 should go to answer 2 only. Then you will be using positional arguments when the order matters and you don't want to do the wrong mapping. So let's understand this positional arguments with some coding part. So here we have first example. So here I'm writing a function. So this is used to display the student information. That is, we have the formal parameters, serial number, name, and his marks. So we are displaying the student's information using this positional arguments or parameters. So this positional arguments are used when we want the order, right? So here what this function does is it will print the serial number first in the first curly braces and name in the second curly braces and marks in the third curly braces. So this will give us the student information in order. That is first serial number, then name and marks. So what I'll give here is, so the function calls, we need to write in order as well. So for serial name, I want to print 10, let's say. So this is the serial name. And second, we have the name, uh, formal parameter. And here actual argument also I'm giving a name in a string format. And then we have marks. So the third position goes to marks, and we are printing some float value, that is 33.33, which is his marks. So if you look at these, everything is in order. So first it takes serial number. So we give 10, that is the serial number. Then it takes the name, and we've given the string of name Rosum, and then we give the marks in the third position. So as the formal parameter is marks here, so in the third position in the arguments also in the function call we'll be giving marks only. So in this way we'll maintain the order, and number of parameters will always be equal to number of arguments. So let's print this. So I'm now making a function call using the function name and three values. So what happens here is, the first value will be stored into the first formal parameter, and the second argument will be stored in the second formal parameter, and the third argument will be stored in the third formal parameter. So in this way it will print first serial name, that is 10, and then name Rosum, and then marks as 33.33. So that is why we got the output as 10 Rosum 33.33. So here the order matters, because if I give, let's say, 33.33 Rosum and then 10. So if I give this in this order, so what happens is, the first value will be considered as serial number. That is 33.33 will be considered serial number, and this will be considered as name, and this will be considered as marks only. So when I give in this order, that is, I'm exchanging 10 and 33.33 here. So when I do this, this 33.33 will be the serial number and 10 will be the marks. But if I give in this way, this will be the serial number and this will be the marks. So here the order matters, because whichever respective formal parameter is there, that respective value only it will take. So that is why when your order is necessary, you can use the positional arguments. And then I can call the same function using multiple values. So I got 20 Gosling 11.11, and then I'm printing 40 Travis 77.77. So what happens here is, first value will be considered as serial number, and it will be printed wherever the serial number is being printed, that is the first value. So 40 is printed here, and then we have Travis, and Travis is being saved in the name variable, and that is printed wherever we need to print the name, that is the second curly braces, and then we printing the 77.77 in the place of the marks variable, that is the third curly braces. So we got 40 Travis and 77.77. So in this way I can use the same function for multiple values, and I can print them. So these are all the student info. And then we have positional arguments with more parameters. So I'm just having more than three parameters here, that is four parameters. So first we will define the function, and then after defining the function, I'll be executing the main program. Okay. So let's execute the whole program and see. So if you see here, first the line is printed using a string hyphen into 40. So this is printed 40 times. So we got the first line. And then we are printing the serial number, tab space, name, tab space, marks, tab space, Hyderabad. So all students are belonging to Hyderabad. So we're printing that. Or you can just print the location also. So let's take location, let's say. So I'll print this function again. So here, so the first value will consist of the serial number, and the second value will consist of the name, and then marks, and then the location. So again I'm printing the line. So this is my heading of the student information. So now I'll call the function, that is display student information, or disp stud info. So I'll be calling the function. So I have four parameters or formal parameters here, and I have four arguments as well. That is, the first value is 10, and that will be given to S number, that is serial number, and it will be printed wherever the serial number needs to be printed, that is the first curly braces. So 10 will be printed in the first position. And then we have ROSM, which is a string, and that is a name, and this will be printed wherever the second variable, that is name, supposed to be printed, that is in the second position, in the second curly braces. So we'll be printing ROSM. And then we have the marks of ROSM, that is 33.33. So here 33.33 value will be taken by the third formal parameter, because this is the third argument, right? So third argument will be given to the third parameter, that is marks. So marks will be equals to 33.33. So let's take from the first. Serial number will be taking the 10 value, and name will be taking ROSM, and marks value variable will be taking the 33.33, which is a parameter, and the city parameter will be taking the fourth value, which is string of HYD, Hyderabad. So city will be equals to HYD. And then after calling this function, what happens is it will execute the print, all the statements inside of this function, right? So it will print the print statement. So first we have serial number. So first it will print 10, that is 10 here, and then it will print a tab space. So tab space is a small space, and then we have the second value, that is name, and name will be printed here, that is ROSM. So ROSM is printed, and then we give tab space again, that is a little space, and then the third value, which is marks, will be printed in the third curly braces, because we are using the dot format function, right? So when we use dot format function, inside of dot format we'll give all the values in order, and inside of this string we'll be using the curly braces to print these values in order. So third curly brace will give the third value here, that is marks. So 33.33 will be printed here, and then we have a tab space again. So space is printed, and the fourth value, that is city. So city will be printed in the fourth curly brace. So that is Hyderabad here. So serial number is 10, name is Razam, marks is 33.33, and location is Hyderabad. So in this way, you can print the values in an order using the positional arguments. So this is easier. Order also must exactly match. And then we are calling the function with the other student details, that is 20, Gosling, 11.11, and Hyderabad. So here we have the values in the order of serial number, name, marks, and location. And then we also called the third student details using this function, that is 40, Travis, 77.77, and Hyderabad. And then we are calling the fourth student name information, that is 50, serial number, Kine is the name, and 55.55 is the marks, and Hyderabad is his location. And then we are ending with a line. Now let us learn about the second type of argument. Excuse me. So in this second type of parameter or argument, so this is the default arguments. So here we will assign the default values. So default values means if there are no value taken for that specific parameter, we will just print the default value which we have given beforehand. So let's take some example. Let's say here we have a function. So we are defining a function name and the first parameter, second parameter, and so on. So here I am giving the values of the last but one value parameter and the last parameter here, such that if in the function call, let's say I'm doing, so I'm calling the function name, and I'm giving the values 10, 20, and so on, like 30. I've only given the three values, right? I've not given the other values like the last button value and last value. So when I call this function, so it will print first, second, and third parameters, and it will also print the default values which are need to be printed. So if I don't give any value in the function call, so the default values which are given in the function definition will be printed. So this is how default parameters work. So we assign the default values in the function definition itself. So let's understand this with the coding. So if you see here, we have defined a function that is display student info, and this consists of some formal parameters already. You can say positional parameters. And then we had three values: serial number, name, and marks. And then I'm giving city value, that is city formal parameter, is equals to Hyderabad. So this here is the default value which I'm giving. If the city value isn't mentioned in the function call, by default it will print the Hyderabad. So let's print this. So first let me define the function. So I'll run the function and I'll run my main program. So what happens here is we will print the hyphens, that is the line, and then we'll print the student name, student number or serial number, and then name and marks, and then the location. Let's just mention as location, okay? So we are giving the details of the student in our table. So the first value will be taken by the first formal parameter, that is, so 10 will be taken by the serial number here, which is the first formal argument, and then the second formal parameter, sorry, and the second argument will be taken by the second formal parameter, and the third argument will be taken by the third formal parameter. And if you see here, we don't have any fourth value, right? So what happens here is, if we did not mention any value for the city parameter, by default Hyderabad will be printed. So that is why when I've called this function with three values only, so the three values will be printed wherever needed, and the fourth value, which is city, will be printed as Hyderabad, because we did not give any fourth value here. That is the fourth argument here. So we'll be printing the values in order. So first serial number, then name, then marks, and then city. So that is why here we have printed 10 ROSM 33.33, and then we didn't give any city value in the arguments. So that is why we just printed the default value, which is Hyderabad. And then if you look at the second function call, this also consists of only three values. So that is why by default we will be printing the value Hyderabad for the city parameter. That is the fourth parameter. And then moving on, we have two more function calls with just serial number, name, and marks. So these people doesn't have any city mentioned in their function call. So that is why by default we'll be printing HYD, which is Hyderabad. And then we have the function call which consists of four values here. So here we have 60, that is serial number. So serial number is 60. And then the second value trump, that is the name. So that will be printed here. And then we have the third value or the third argument, which is 15.55 in the function call. So this formal parameter will be taking that value, that is marks. Marks will be taking 15.55, and then the fourth formal parameter, which is city, will be taking the value which is given in the function call, that is USA. So city will be printing USA. So that is why we got 60 first. So serial number will be printed in the first curly braces and name will be printed in the second curly braces and marks will be printed in the third curly braces. City will be printed in the fourth curly braces. So we'll be printing 60 and Trump and then 15.55. And as we've mentioned the city parameter value, that is USA here, that is the fourth value, we'll be printing that as well. And then moving on, we have a function call again with only three values without the location. So the first value 70 will be printed at the place of serial number, and in place of name Sunil will be printed, and in place of marks 10.55 will be printed, and the fourth value isn't given, that is the location. So by default city will be printed as Hyderabad only. So we'll get 70 Sunil, 10.55 and Hyderabad. And then again we are mentioning four values here for the student Jostling. So serial number will be taken as 80 and name will be Jostling, and then marks will be 10.55, and then the city will be printed as RSA because we have mentioned it manually here, that is the location is equal to RSA. So that will be printed in the place of the fourth value, which is city. If we don't mention anything, it will be printed as Hyderabad because the default value is given as Hyderabad. So this is how we can use default arguments in our functions to give default values in case of a missing value. And then we have another example using the employees data. So displaying employee details. So when we want to display employee details, we can use this function. So this consists of the default values, and if I call my main program, so what happens here is, so my default values for the function display employee details is equal to, so first employee number is equal to 10. This is the default values, okay? So in case of the missing values only, these will be printed. And you should remember that the default parameters must come at the end. So if you look at this before example, so I'm giving the default value at the end of the other function, other parameters, okay? After the positional parameters only, I'm giving the default argument. So you need to remember that default parameters or arguments must come at the end. So end of the function definition. So moving on, we have the employee details, and the employee number by default is 10, such that if there is no employee number entered, we will be giving 10 value. And then employee name by default is Naveen, and salary by default is 1.2, and the C name or the company name will be IBM by default. And in this function, we'll be printing all the details, that is employee number, employee name, salary and company name. So in order, we'll be printing with the separating them with the tab space, okay? So when we run the main program, first we'll print the all the hyphens to just make it look good, and we'll print the employee number, name and salary and company name with the tab spaces separating them, and then we'll print the line again such that this will become our heading. And then now the main function call starts here. So we are calling this display employee details function, and I haven't given any value. So even for one parameter also I didn't give any argument or value. So by default, all the default values of these four formal parameters will be printed. So that is by default we'll be printing 10. So in the place of e number we'll be printing 10 here, and then we'll print the e name as Naveen, that is the second value, and then we'll have a tab space here, and then we'll print the sal variable or formal parameter that is equal to 1.2. So by default this is the value, and we'll print 1.2 there, and by default the company name is IBM, so I'll print IBM. And then moving on to the second function call, we have two values. So what are the two values? We have the order in enum, ename, salary, and company name, right? So we need to take them in order as well. So first Samir, so first 20 and then Samir. So E number will be 20 and E name will be Samir. And the other two values are not given here. So that is why we will take 20 and Samir as E number and E name, and we will give the default values for the other two, that is salary and company name. So we'll be giving 1.2 for salary and IBM for company name. So the default values will be printed wherever we didn't give the value in the function call, that is the arguments, for the respective formal parameters. So that is why we printed 20, Samir, 1.2 and IBM. So these two values are given. So these two values are not given. So these are the default values. And then moving on to the next function call, that is we have three values, that is 30, Kumar and 1.5. So if you see, we have the order, that is E number, E name, salary and C name. So the first value 30 will be given to E number and Kumar will be given to E name. And then for salary, we have the value 1.5. And if you see, we don't have any fourth value, that is for the company name. So that is why here we will be printing the default value, that is IBM. So I'll print IBM, that is 30 Kumar space 1.5 space IBM is printed. So in this way, we can print all the values by giving default values. And we have the fourth function call here with four values. All four values I'm giving in the function call itself. That is the arguments. So as there are no missing values, your default values won't be printed anywhere. So first we have the value 40. So this 40 will be printed in the place of E number. So that is 40 here. And then we'll take a space. And second formal parameter is E name. So this will be taking the value of Kalam and it will print Kalam. And in the place of third argument, we have 1.6. So this 1.6 is taken by the sal variable. So in the place of SAL variable, we will be printing the value of 1.6. That is the third curly brace. So we'll take a space and we'll print 1.6. And then we will print the company name as NEUT because we have given the value manually. So as we mentioned it particularly, we will be printing the company name, that is C name, will be taking the value of NEUT and it will print NEUT, that is here. So this is how we can use the default arguments, and if there are any missing values, we can give that. So third example, we have the area of circle. So here we are trying to find the area of circle using the radius, and this is my function. So area of circle function consists of the r value comma, so the radius value r comma pi value pi will be taking the default value of 3.14. So this is a default value because pi is always 3.14 itself. So we are directly giving it as a default value such that we don't need to enter it in the function call. So when this function is called, first area of circle, that is AC variable, will take the values of pi into r to the power of 2. So that is why we gave the exponentiation. So exponentiation 2. So area of circle is pi r square, right? So that is why pi pi into r to the power of 2. So we use the exponentiation 2. So that is how it works, and it will calculate the value of area of circle and it will print the radius value and the area of circle value using the dot format functions. So I have defined the function. Now I will do the function call. So I am calling area circle, which is the function name, and the value as 1.2. So if you see here, this 1.2 will be taken by the first formal parameter, that is r. So r is equal to 1.2, and the second formal parameter, that is pi will be taking the default value 3.14. So this is how it takes the values and it will calculate 3.14 into 1.2 to the power of 2, that is exponentiation. So we used it here, and it will calculate so it will give the radius value, that is 1.2, and the area of circle using the pi r square formula, and it will print the area of circle at the end. So we are giving only the radiuses here. If you observe, we are only giving the radiuses, and the pi value is default value. So it will take 3.14 always. But if we explicitly give any value in the function call, it will take that value. So here first, in the second circle, radius is 2.2 and r value will be 2.2, and the area of circle will be pi r square, which is 3.14 into 2.2 to the power of 2. So here as we give only the first value, so it will be taken in the order, that is r will be equals to 2.2 and pi value will be equals to 3.14. So it will take AC equals to 3.14 into 2.2 to the power of 2, because we are using the exponentiation. So r exponent 2 is 2.2, that is radius to the power of 2. So the answer at the end will be area of circle 15.1976000. And then moving on, we have one more function call where radius is 5.2. And then let's try giving a hard-coded value for pi now. So if we give radius as 2 and pi value as 1.4, let's say, and let's run it. So what happens here is the value. So we gave both values, right? So as we given both the values, so r will take the value of 2 and pi will be taking the value of 1.4. And it will find the area of circle that will be equal to 1.4 into 2 to the power of 2. So 1.4 into 4. So that will be 5.6. So here, as I've given the value of pi manually, so pi will be taking the value 1.4. Otherwise, if you see in the before conditions, it will take 3.14 as the default value. As pi is a constant value and you cannot change it, so we can just give it as a default argument in our example or the function. So now moving on, let's learn about the next type of argument, which is keyword parameter or argument. So here, in this keyword parameter or argument, the order does not matter. So when we don't know the order of the parameters or parameter names and you want to pass the data or values, let's say, if you want to pass correct values to your formal parameters without knowing the order, we must use the concept of keyword parameters or arguments, okay? So in this keyword parameter or arguments, your order doesn't matter. So even though your order is mixed, if you give the values correctly using the keyword parameter or arguments, your function will work perfectly. So let's look at the syntax for the function here. So here we will be giving, so we are defining some function name, and I'm giving some parameters, okay? And when I'm doing the function call, let's say I don't know the order. So let's say I don't know order, that ABC is my order, let's say in the function name. So if this is my order of formal parameters in the function name, and if I don't know the order of the ABC, what I can do is I can use the keyword arguments or parameters. So how I can call the function is, let's say display is the function name, okay? Now I'll call the function display, and as I don't know the order is ABC, what I'll do is I'll give the B value as 20 and then I'll give C value as 30, comma A value as 10. So what happens here is, so this is the keyword parameter or arguments. So what happens is, even if I don't know the order, I can give the values correctly to the formal parameters. So what this does is, it will give B the value of 20 correctly, and it will give C the value of 30 correctly, and it will give the A value as 10. So even if I don't know the order of formal parameters in my function, I can still give the values correctly to my respective formal parameters. So in this case, I can use the keyword parameter or arguments. So first, what you need to remember is positional keywords should always come first, and then you can write the keyword parameters. So positional keywords need to be first, and then you need to write the keyword parameters. You cannot write it first keyword parameters and then positional parameters, sorry. So first you need to write the positional parameters or arguments, and then you need to write the keyword parameters or arguments. So let's take some examples and understand the keyword parameters or arguments. Now let's learn about the keyword arguments or parameters. So we have a function to display three values, let's say ABC, and I'm defining the function display. So display consists of a print function. We are printing A, B, C values. So we are just displaying the values of ABC, and our main program consists of first, let's run the main program totally and we'll understand each line. So here first we will print a line and then ABC heading, and then we'll print one more line using this string of hyphen into 40. So this will print 40 number of hyphens, and we'll have a clear heading, and then here we are starting the function calls. So here we are calling the function disp. So this is displaying the values of 10, 20, 30. So if you see here, we just use the positional arguments here, that is the 10 which is in the first place will be taken by the A value, and 20 will be taken by B, and 30 will be taken by the formal parameter C. So then directly using the positional arguments we can do in this way, and it will print 10, 20, 30 only by default. So this is the positional arguments way. But if I don't know that the first value will be A, second value will be B, third value will be C. So what I can do then is I can use the keyword argument. So how you can use it is, you can give C value equal to 30 and A value equal to 10 and B value equal to 20, such that first we have C equal to 30. So 30 value will be given to the variable or the formal parameter C. So C will be equal to 30 here in the display function. And we give, so we've given A equal to 10. So what happens is this A equal to 10 will be given to the value A here. So A will be given as 10. And then we are mentioning B equal to 20. So what happens is B equal to 20 will be saved to the value B here, and B will be equal to 20. So that will be in order. So first, here we are printing A first using the print function and curly braces. So first A will be printed, and then we'll print B here, which is the second value in the second curly braces, and then we'll print C in the third curly braces. So that is how you can print 10, 20 and 30 in the order of 10, 20, 30. So even if you don't know the order of the variables or formal parameters in your function definition, you can just manually give the values in the form of keyword arguments, and you can still get the order correctly. So that is 10, 20, 30. So here in the third function call here, I know that A is the first position, but I don't know if it is C and then B or B and then C. So I know the first position is A, but I don't know the next two positions. So what I can do is first I'll give a value 10 by default here. So without any A equal to 10, I'm just giving 10. So 10 will automatically given to the variable A. So that is the formal parameter. So this A will take the value of 10. Now I don't know the order of B and C. So if it is taking as B comma C or C comma B, I don't know. So then what I can do is I can give them as keyword arguments, that is C equal to 30 and then B equal to 20. So C equal to 30 means, so C value will be taking the 30 value that is here, and C will be 30. So this C will take the value of 30, and then B value will be taking 20. That is B equal to 20. So when I print this values A, B, C, so first A, then B, then C, right? So then it will print 10, 20, 30. So still I got the correct order using the keyword arguments. So this is how I can print when I don't know the order. So let's say I know the first two values are A and B, then the third value, what it is, I don't know. Then I can just use 10, comma 20. So 10 will be given to A, 20 will be given to B, and then we are mentioning C equal to 30. So I don't know if there are any more arguments or not, right? Like if there are any more formal parameters like D, E are there or not, I don't know. So what I will do is, I'll give specifically C is equal to 30, such that C will be the value 30, and it will print me 10, 20, 30 still in the order. So this is how I can do it. So as I told you guys, first we will use the positional arguments. That is, we'll give the positional arguments first, and then only we will give the keyword arguments. So let's say I have given the keyword argument, that is C equal to 30 here, and then I'm giving the positional arguments. So this will give us an error because positional arguments follows keyword arguments. So as the positional arguments are after the keyword argument, that is C equal to 30, so we'll get error. So always what you'll do is first give the positional arguments like 10, 10 comma 20, and then mention your keyword arguments like C equal to 30 or B equal to 20. So do this. So this is the rule here. If we don't follow that, we'll get an syntax error. So please follow first the positional arguments and then the keyword arguments. So here we have the student details function. So using keyword arguments, I am giving. So here we have a default argument also, that is CRS equal to Python. So in case of no value given to CRS, we will print Python. So let's define the function first, and then we will print the program. Now we'll print the main program. So if you see here, we are printing the program. First, we'll print the hyphens and then the heading and then hyphens, such that we'll get a good heading. So student number, tab space name, tab space marks, and course. So student number, space name, space marks, and space course. So this is my heading for my student details. And then we'll start function call. So here if you see, we are calling the values 100 comma NEUT comma 66.66. So here we given the positional keywords. Okay, as we know, positional keywords follow the order. So first value will be given to the first formal parameter, that is serial number, and second value NEUT will be given to the second formal parameter, that is S name, student name, and third argument or third value will be given to the third formal parameter, that is marks. So it will print the, so in the print function of this function we are printing the four values, that is serial number comma student name, and then marks, and then course or CRS. So the first three values will be printed, 100 and NEOT 66.66, and by default we have the course value as Python, right? So here there is no fourth value. So by default the fourth value, that is CRS, which is course, will be given as Python only. So in this way you can print the values, and there is one more function call with only three values. So here if you, this will demonstrate the positional keywords and the default keyword. Okay, so 101 JG 16.55 and then CRS, which is Python, will be printed in the order, that is here. Now let's say I want to print using the keyword arguments, so I don't know the order. Let's say I don't know which order Here in the function definition, which order the formal parameters are given, I don't know. So what I'll do is I still want to print it in the correct order. So what I'll do is I'll use the keyword arguments, that is marks equals to 33.33. First I'll give the marks, okay? So what is this does is it will save the marks 33.33 into the formal parameter marks only. And then serial number is given as 102. So now this 102 will be saved into serial number only, and student name is given as RT. So this value which is given as third will be saved in the correct formal parameter, that is student name. And if you see, we don't have any CRS param or the argument for CRS formal parameter. So we don't have value. So by default, it will print Python. So first, it will print the serial number 102 in the order using this print function. Okay. So we'll get the order correctly. So first, it will print serial number, that is 102, and then the student name, it will print RT. So RT is printed, and then it will print the marks, that is 33.33 in the place of marks, that is third position, 33.33. And then we'll print the CRS, which is the course Python. So in this way, you can print the values even if you don't know the order. And then we have 103 comma marks equal to 10.11, serial name equal to MC. Excuse me. So here we have first the positional arguments and then keyword arguments. So this is the order and this is the accept order. If we give it first marks and then student name and then 103, it will get an error. So if you see here in this example, first I gave the keyword arguments and then I gave the positional argument, that is Java, just Java. So this will give me error that positional arguments are follows the keyword arguments. So this will not run. So first we need to give the position arguments and then only keyword arguments, that is marks and student name. So this will print the first value, which is serial number, will be taking the first argument, that is 103. And then we'll give marks as 10.11. So marks will take 10.11 and student name will take MC, and then CRS, which is the default argument, will print the default value Python. So 103 MC student name and marks as 10.11 and course Python will be printed. So this way I can print it, and then we have all keyword arguments only. So first I given the marks. So 13.33. So marks is 13.33. So marks will take 13.33 value and CRS will take Java, and serial number or student number will take 104 and student name will take ZC. So these are values taken by this function, and it will print as serial number in the first curly braces. So serial number is 104. So 104 will be printed in the first, and and then we'll take the tab space, and the student name, which is the second value, will be printed in the second curly braces, that is ZC. And then we have the marks that will be printed in the third curly braces. So marks equal to 13.33, that will be printed in the third place. And then we have tab space, and then we will print the course CRS, which is Java. So it will be printed in the fourth curly braces here. So in this way, you can use the keyword parameters or arguments to display the values, even if you don't know the order. If you know the order, when order matters, you can just use positional arguments. And if there are any missing values in the function call, if we want to print certain values, we can use the default parameters like here in the function definition, such that in the function call, when there are no values for the fourth or the other formal parameters, we can just print the default value. So if you see here, as we are printing the keyword arguments and then we are printing the positional, right? So that is why we'll get a syntax error here. So this is how you can use the keyword arguments. Okay, everyone, let's learn about the variable length parameters or arguments. So these variable length parameters or arguments are used when there are multiple values and we don't know the values in the number of values. If we don't know before itself, we can use this variable length parameters or arguments. So let's say when we define a function, we will give the variable or formal parameters for that values, right? So we will give, let's say, a comma b comma c. So this function will only take three values. But while using the function, I want to take four values, let's say a d value also. But I've defined the function already as a comma b comma c. So this will take only three values. So in case of when the number of inputs are not fixed, you can use variable length parameters or arguments. So beforehand, if you don't know how many values your function will take or how many inputs your function will take, you can use variable length parameters or arguments. So how we can use this is you will define using the def keyword and you'll give space and you'll write the function name, and inside of this parenthesis you'll give the list of parameters if there are any, and you'll be giving asterisk params. So this asterisk params is a variable length parameter, so it can hold any number of argument values or variables. So this must always be written at the last part of the function heading, and it must be only one. So you cannot use multiple variable length parameters at once, okay? So first, you need to write if there are any list of parameters you have already in mind, and if there are any more to be added, you can just give a asterisk param or the parameter name, and it can be only one, and it needs to be written at the last part of the function heading. So in the function heading, it needs to be written at the last. So let's look at some examples of variable length parameters or arguments. So if you see here, first I have single value, let's say, and I will create a function display x. So this is defined and I will display a single value using this. Now I want to display two values, let's say. I have to write again one more function, and I should tell definition of this function is display x comma y such that I can display both the values, and then I can use this function to display two values. Let's say now I want three values. Again, I should edit or write a new function to display three values of arguments. So then only I can print three values. And so on. If I want to print n number of values, I need to again write a new function or edit my old function. So this way I can print number of dynamic values. But we cannot do that every time, right? So that is why we can use variable length arguments, that is asterisk of args. So this function here we are using the variable length arguments. So what I'll define it is, so this is my display function. So this has the asterisk a, which is variable length arguments. So this will take any number of values into it and it will print it in the same way. So what happens is when I do this, it will store the values in a tuple format. So in a tuple, it will take all the values of A and it will store, and then it will work for any number of inputs. So n number of values you can give to this variable length argument. So what happens is first we'll define our function, and the formal parameter here is star A or asterisk A, and inside of this function we'll take the number of values. So for value in A, so first let's say I've called the values, let's say 10, 30, 10, 20, 30. So what happens is the first value 10 will be taken as for 10 in A, and we'll print the value that is 10. So 10 will be printed, and next we have 20 value, right? So for 20 in A, so here end parameter is space. So we'll just give some space and we'll wait. And the second value is 20. So now we'll print the second value that is in the val variable. that is 20. 20 will be printed, and the end parameter consists of a space. So we'll just give space and wait, and we have the third value as 30, right? So here we have 30. So 30 is in the place of val. So 30, for 30 in A, the loop will print the third value, that is 30, and it will give some space and it will stop. So we don't have any more values, so it will print in this way. So using this variable length arguments, we can print n number of values. So let's run this. First, let's run display of 10. So we have only one value, so it will print one value. In the place of val, it will take 10 and it will print 10. And here it will give a small space because the end parameter is a empty space. So it will print it in this way, and and then we have two more values. So here two values, that is 10 and 20 we have. So first the 10 value will be printed, and then with a end value of 10, that is a space, 20 will be printed, that is the second value, and one more space will be printed here for that 20, because the end parameter here is a space. And then if we want to print three values, we can use the same function to print those three values using the variable length arguments. So even if we give n number of values, still it will print all the values by taking it in a loop here. So if you see, it will take any kind of values and any number of values, and it will still print the dynamic number of values. So when you don't know how many number of inputs are required in the first place and you want to create a function, so you can use a variable length argument and you can take the function and first build it. And then during the function call, you can give the number of values you want to print or you can use. So this is how I can use variable length arguments. And I have a function to find the number of sum of number of inputs. So I'm using the variable length arguments because I wouldn't know how many values I'll be taking. So first, in the sum operation function, first let me define the function. So what happens here is, so this sum operation takes two formal parameters, that is student name and asterisk a. So this takes the marks. Let's say this is the student name and we are calculating the total marks of the student. Okay. So first our s variable. So this here is a local variable. So this is taken just for temporary purpose, and this local variable can be accessed inside of this function only. So outside of this function you cannot access this s variable. Okay. So only inside of this function you can access this s equal to 10 or s variable. So that is why this is the local variable. So initially sum will be 0. So initiated to 0 because we'll be adding all the values one by one, right? So first we need to initialize your s value, that is the sum value variable, to 0. And then we are printing the name of the student using the dot format function. So s name will be printed in the place of curly braces here, and name of student will be printed, and then we will start the for loop for finding the sum of the marks of that student, let's say. So first we have the value. So for value in A, so here A, your asterisk A is storing the values inside of tuple, right? So that is our iterable object for now. So value, for value in A, first the value will represent the first value, and then the second value, and then the third value. So let's take the first value, let's say 10. So first value will be equal to 10 and it will print the value 10. So using this format function, so curly braces I have here, so in 10 will be printed, and the end parameter of this value is a space. So space will be given, and for the s variable, So s equal to s plus val, right? So s is 0 value. So on the right hand side only you need to take the values. So s equal to 0, 0 plus the value 10 will be added. So now the updated value of s will be 10. So s first it is 0, now it is 10. If you have more values, so that will be added and it will be updated again and again. And last we'll be printing this value sum. So now let's take the example and we'll call the function. So here we have sum operation of rs comma 10. So first the rs value is the student name. So s name will be taking the rs string, and in the name of student it will print the rs. So let's call the function. So if you see here, first the hyphens are printed here, and then s will be taken as 0 initially, and then we'll print the name of the student, that is rs. So rs is printed. Now we'll go into the for loop. So for loop will consist of only the values 10 here. So asterisk a will consist of 10 value. So it will print 10, and the sum of 0 and 10 will be 10 only, right? So sum will be printed as 10. Let's take the value here for student number 3 tr. So what happens here is, first the value tr will be taken as the student name, which is using the positional argument, and then we have the number of values will be stored in the a, which is a tuple. So this 10 value will be stored in the asterisk a, and then 20 also will be stored in this. So it will be stored in the case of 10 comma 20 in this way in a tuple. So now what happens is, first we'll print the hyphens, and then s will be initiated to 0, and we'll print name of student equal to tr. So tr is, s name is the tr, right? So tr will be printed here, and then we will take as to k values, that is 10, 20 and 30. So first for val in a. So a will consist of, so for val in a consists of 10, 20 and 30, right? So that's a tuple. So first the val will be pointing to 10, and we'll be printing the val, that is 10, and we'll be giving a end parameter is space, right? So we'll be giving a space, and then we will do the next line of code, that is s equal to s plus val. So we'll execute this. So first s is 0, so s equal to s, that is 0 plus val, that is 10. Now that will be equal to 10, right? So 0 will be updated to 10. Now it will move on to the next value in the for loop. So now val variable will be pointing to 20. So 10 is done. So now it will point to 20. So now val equal to 20, and we are printing val here. So 20 is printed, and the end parameter is a space. So space is printed here, and then we are doing the sum updation. So s equal to s plus val. So s value is 10. So 10 plus val is 20. So 20. 10 plus 20 is 30. So your s is updated to 30. And then we will move on to the next iteration. And now the val variable will be pointing to the next value, which is 30. So now val is equal to 30, and we'll print the val with the end parameter space. So 30 will be printed with some space here. And now s equal to s plus val. So s is equals to s, which is 30 initial. Now after 2 iterations s is equal to 30, and the value equal to 30. So 30 plus 30 will be 60. So s value will be printed, and that will be 60. So we have a print function for a new line, and this print function will print the sum value, that is of s, that is 60. Sum equal to 60 is printed, and will print a hyphen. So this is how you can use the variable length arguments to print number of values when you don't know during the function definition. You can just use the variable length argument such that you can give the values dynamically. Any number of values you can give, and Args or the asterisk args or variable length arguments must be given at the end always. So if you have any positional arguments like this student name, you need to give them as first, and then you need to give the variable length arguments. You shouldn't do it in the reverse order, okay? And then here we have variable length arguments with default parameter. So first I've given the positional arguments as name, and then I've given the asterisk a, and then I'm giving the default parameters. That is course or CRS equal to Python. So if there is no value given for the third argument, we'll be giving as Python. So first, let me define this function and we'll learn about it. So first here I've just called the sum operation. So what this sum operation does the same as before one. So we just learned about this sum function, right? So this is also almost as the similar one. Just we are giving the course name as the default parameter here. So first we've called the sum operation function. So this function first it needs a positional argument. So here as you can see we did not give that, so that is why missing one required positional argument is there. Now let's say I have given the positional argument and CRS equal to DL. So this will take the values. So S name will be taking the value of Mohan, student name, and CRS will take the value testing. So it will print the hyphens, that is a line, and now it will print the name of student as S name, which is Mohan. And then the print function is printing first the S name student, that is Mohan, is doing CRS, which is the course plus course. So course name and course. So first name of student. Okay, the student name here is Hyderabad and course name is DL. So name of student Hyderabad is printed and Hyderabad is doing DL course is printed from this two lines. And if you see here, we did not give any value for the variable length argument A, right? So as we don't give any value, so there will be empty values in the tuple. So when you go through the for loop also, there will be no values, right? To iterate through. So as there are no values, you will not just print the sum. So sum addition as we initialized it to 0. So that will be 0 itself and it will print sum equal to 0. So this is how it works. And if you give keyword arguments directly for sname and CRS in the function call. So this will give Mohan, student name of the student is Mohan and Mohan is doing the testing course. So here I have given the keyword arguments directly. And here I have positional argument and this ROSM will be taken by the formal parameter sname and then we did not give any variable length arguments for asterisk A and we have a default parameter CRS. So default parameter consists of value Python. So it will print the name of student as Rosam and Rosam is doing Python course. So that is the default value. So it is being printed. So we did not give any of the marks or values for A, right? So that is why sum is initialized to 0 and it will stay at 0 only. Now if you see here student name is RS and the values for asterisk A is 10 and the value of CRS, so we did not give any value here in the function call. So the default value will be printed. So the name of student is printed as RS and RS is doing the Python course and sum will be 0 plus 10, that is sum equal to 10. And then moving on, we have name of student as JG and he is doing a Python course and the marks of his are 10, 20. So 0 plus 10 plus 20 will give us 30. So this is how we can find it. And let's say I'm giving a CRS value also now. So student name will be taken as TR and course name will be taken as C++ because I've given the keyword parameter here. So TR is doing C++ course and his marks are 10, 20, 30. So your argument A will take a tuple of values 10, 20 and 30 and we'll find the sum of these values. So 0 plus 10 plus 20 plus 30 will be 60. So sum equal to 60. So this is how you can find using the variable length arguments. And if we move on to other values, so we'll find 4 number of inputs for A. And here we have 6 inputs. So we'll find dr, that is student name, is doing Python course which is default value and all the values are 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 and 60. So here we'll be printing all the values and the sum of those values is 210. Now we have so as you can see here, as the positional arguments will take the order, right? So here the S name, which is the first value, is taken as minus 10 directly. And again, we are giving minus 20 and minus 30. So these value will be taken by asterisk A. Again, we are doing S name equal to NUT. So that is why we got the type error which says some operation function got multiple values for argument S name. So this is why your order matters, because here S name is your positional argument and the first value will be always taken as the S name only. So if I give this as CRS and I'll print it. So if you see here, the first value will be taken as S name, that is minus 10. Even if it is not the name of student, it will be taken as that because we are calling it in the order. So first the name of student minus 10. So minus 10 is doing NUT course. So we given course as NUT. So in place of CRS formal parameter, it will print NUT. So minus 10 is doing NUT course and for it the values of A will be minus 20 and minus 30. So these are the values and sum will be taken as minus 20 minus 30, that is minus 50. So this is what you need to remember. So the first value will be taken as the position argument whichever is there in your function definition. So remember that. So in that order only we'll be taking the values. So here we have NUT, CRS and then the values 4, 5, minus 4, minus 5. So if you see here, what happens is NUT will be taken by S name directly. So this is S name. NUT will taken by the S name, which is the first argument. Whether it is string or a number, it will take that. And CRS is given as DSC. So DSC is my course. So what's happening here is 4, 5, minus 4 and minus 5 is being given here. So that means, so these are the positional arguments here. So that is why we got syntax error. Positional argument follows keyword argument. So always your keyword argument will be after positional arguments. So as I've given the keyword argument before the positional arguments, I got the syntax error. So what I need to do is, I can give it as here. So NUT, the values for A, and then CRS, which is the course. So if I give it as this, let's say what happens. So if you see here, what's happening here is in this function call, what is happening is first the S name will take the value of NUT. And then we have asterisk A, right? So here this asterisk A value will take all the values till the next formal parameter is given, right? So it will take all values 4, 5, minus 4, minus 5 and Java. So this is a tuple, right? So tuple takes only this values, and when you try to do the sum of this values in the, so all these values from 4, 5, minus 4, minus 5 and Java, so these values will be taken in the tuple because tuple consists of all type of data types. So when we try to do the sum of this values, that is 4 plus 5, 9 will be done. 9 minus 4, 5 will be done, and 5 minus 5, 0 will be done. And then for the next value for Java in A, we'll be doing the sum, right? 0 plus Java, it cannot be done because the operand type for plus, we cannot add int and string values, right? You can add string and int and int, but you cannot be adding int and string values. So that is why you will be getting an error here. That is type error unsupported operand for plus int and string. So this value is still taken as the A value only. This is not taken as the course. So that is why you need to mention the keyword argument CRS equal to Java such that this Java value will be taken as the CRS, which is course. That is the formal parameter CRS. So then it will print the name equal to NUT, and NUT is doing Java course, and the numbers are 4, 5, minus 4, minus 5, and then it will find the sum properly and it will give. And here if you see, again what's happening here is the RW will be taken as S name and CRS is the course. So ML will be taken as course name. But here we are giving A equal to 10. So A will be only the value of 10 here. Okay. And 20, 30, 40, 50, these are treated as positional arguments only. So that is why we'll get the syntax error, positional arguments after keyword arguments. So if I just give one value here and I try to implement this, still we'll get the error because A is a keyword argument and that is unexpected. So that is why this positional arguments after the keyword arguments won't be proper. So that will give us an error. That is positional argument follows keyword argument. So what you need to do is we need to follow this order. So first you need to give the first value that will be taken as its name, and then you need to give number of values for A, and then only you need to mention CRS equal to your course name such that it will run smoothly in this order. So to get that we need to give them in an order neatly. And then now let's learn about the fifth type of argument, which is keyword variable length argument. So this, when we want key value pairs, like in dictionary we have key value pairs, right? So when we want to print them as key value pairs, so we can use the keyword variable length parameters or arguments. So how you can use it is, you can give definition, function name, and list of formal parameters if there are any. And then we will give asterisk params or the formal parameters. So in this way, you can create a keyword variable length parameters. So let's take some examples now. So here we have a keyword variable length parameter used function, and it consists of the definition display asterisk k. So this value takes all the keyword and the value of it, and it will give it as a key value pair. So here when I define this, and let's say I'm displaying s number equal to 10. So what happens here is your A will take, that is basically we are using asterisk KWARGS. So this A is this. So by default we'll be calling keyword variable in parameters as asterisk KWARGS. So now when I give or when I call this function using s number equal to 10, what happens is the values A will take these both values, and first it will print a hyphen, so a line is printed, and for values K and V in A dot items. So this will be taken as like a dictionary, almost like a dictionary, right? So in the items, first this value is the K value and this value is the V value. So it will print K arrow mark V. So format K comma V, right? So K arrow mark V will be printed. So using this for loop, we'll print these values as this. So S number is the K value here, 10 is the V value, that is value. So key value pairs are printed using the keyword variable length parameters or arguments. So let's print one more, and here we have two pairs, that is e number equal to 100 and e name equal to jg. So using this function I can print the keyword variable length arguments or functions. And I have three key value pairs here, and I'm printing them using the function display. And here I have almost four values, and I'm printing all the four values using the key value pairs. So in this format I wanted to print, so I have printed in this way. If you want, you can print it in this way as well. So we'll define the function again, and let me print the values. So a equal to 10, b equal to 20, c equal to 30, and d equal to 40, e equal to 50. So in this way I can print the key value pairs. So if I don't give any values, it will just print no values, will not get any error. And we have a program which will compute the total marks secured by different students who are studying in different classes by securing various subject marks. So we have a find total marks function. So this function will calculate the total marks secured by the students. So here what happens here is, first we'll take the student name and student class, and we are printing the student name and class as the heading. And then first your total marks is taken as 0 initially, and then the subject marks will be printed using the for loop, and the addition of the total marks also will be done, that is a sum. So here the subject name comma subject marks in marks comma items. So this will be taken as a keyword variable and parameter, right? So the key and value will be having. So the subject name will be taken as the key, and subject marks will be taken as the value, and we will print those first, and then we will add the subject marks, which is the value, to the total marks, and we'll keep on doing this. So let's take an example first, and at the end we'll print the total marks. Okay, so first let's take an example and call this function. So in this function, the first value S name or the student name is RS, and then we have he's studying in the 10th standard, so this is the class. So CLS class consists of the value X. So student name RS is printed using this function, and studying in the X class will be printed using the second print function. So studying in 10th class, and this will be our heading. And then we have a student name and student marks, subject name and subject marks. So that is a heading, and we will be taking the values from here. So the asterisk A will take all the values from here, and it will create the key value pairs. So what happens here is, first we have max. So maths is the subject name that will be taken as the first name. So the first variable subname. So this will be subname, and submarks will be 88. So this is a key value pair. So we'll print the key value pair here using the subname comma submarks inside of format. So maths and 88 is printed, and then we have science, that is equal to 67. So subname will take science and submarks will take 67, and using that we are printing it. And then you need to remember we are calculating the total marks also here. So first total marks equal to 0, right? And after the first iteration, that is maths, so 0 plus 88, so S or total marks is updated to 88. And then it will keep on adding all the marks using the key value pairs. Then it will print science and 67, and it will add 67 here. And then it will print the next value, social equal to 55. So social 55 it will print, and it will add 55, and then it will take Hindi value 66, so plus 66 using this line here. So it will print the subject and marks, and it will add to the total marks. It will add the subject marks to total marks. And then we have English equal to 55, so plus 55, and then we have Telugu equal to 66 plus 66, so it is printed and added. At the end, the total sum will be 397. So this is how we can get or use the keyword variable length parameters. And I have one more function call here. Only three subjects are there for the next student. So student name is JG, and studying in 12th class, and the subject is maths, physics and chemistry, 75, 58 and 55. So the total marks will be the sum using this for loop. So total marks equal to total marks plus subject marks line, you can get the sum and inside of the loop. So you are printing it and adding the subject marks to total marks and updating the total marks. So at the end you will, as this for loop will be completed without any break, we will be printing the else block also, that is print line, and that is a collection of hyphens, and then we'll print the total marks using the tot marks variable. So this is how you can get the total marks of another student, and we have one more student and he have 4 subjects and the total marks are 244, and this student has only one subject. So he's studying the research class and has only Python and got 50 marks. So that is how you can print it. And if there are no marks, you will just print the student name and student studying in author class. So as we didn't give any more values, so here the value of asterisk marks will having no values. So as there are no values, as it will move on through the for loop, so the total marks will stay at 0 only, right? Initiated at 0 and it will stay at 0 only. So that is why at the end it will print total marks using this else block, and it will print total marks equal to 0. So this is how you can use all the types of variables, all the types of arguments and parameters. So today we've learned about the parameters and arguments. First, formal parameters are used in function definition and actual parameters are used in function call. And then we've learned about the formal parameters and local parameters difference. So formal parameters are the one used in the function definition here instead of add parenthesis, and the local parameters are the ones used to store temporary results. That is, here we have a variable result. So this is the local parameter here. And then we got to learn about the 5 types of arguments or parameters, so through which we can give the input to a function. So we have positional parameters. So when we want the order and when we know the order and order matters, we can use the positional arguments. And then we have default parameters or arguments. So when there are values which may be missing. So if in the function call, if we miss the value, we can just print the default value which is given in the function definition beforehand only. So we'll just print the default values. And then we have keyword parameters. So when you don't know the order to print, or when the order doesn't matter, you can use the keyword parameters or arguments to print the values. And then we have variable length parameters. So when you don't know the number of inputs beforehand, or when the number of inputs aren't fixed, you can use the variable length argument, such that how many ever values you'll give, those will be stored in the tuple, and you can work with those values. You can just print them, or you can do transformation, or you can add some value to it. You can do that. So it works for any number of inputs. And then moving on, we have keyword variable length parameters or arguments. So these will be taking the key value pairs. So when you want to print both key and values, so this will be taken into a dictionary format, and you can print the keys and values using this keyword variable length parameters. So that's it for today, guys. Tomorrow we will be learning about global versus local, and a global keyword, global function, and also other functions like anonymous functions and special functions. So tomorrow we'll be learning all those. So for today we've learned or covered the parameters and arguments. So if there are any questions, please feel free to ask in the chat box, and please practice these questions given on the screen using the information you learned today. So please take a screenshot or note them down such that you can complete them as practice problems. So if you have any more doubts, please put it in the chat box. And if you want to visit the previous videos, you can go to the Python for AI 2026 playlist in our channel, and you can revisit our videos and revise them. from day 1 to day 16. And if you like our content, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel and share it to your friends if they want to learn Python. And yeah, please wait for the feedback form. It will be shared soon. Thank you for today, guys. Thank you for listening.